Hi, I'm Ryan Glover at Glover Nursery, and today we're going to talk a little bit about trees and fall planting and some stresses that they can have. So this tree behind me is Japanese maple, planted here. I know it looks a little rough to some people, but this tree is going to be just fine. Came in the nursery in a hotter time of the year and dried up a little bit, but it's going to be great. So it'll drop all the leaves in a few weeks. It'll look just like all the other trees, and then give that good time for the roots to establish late fall through the winter, and then pop out in the springtime. And then this other one here, this isn't something that most people would think to go ahead and plant, but this is totally alive and fine. So we're gonna go ahead and plant this, and it's gonna look great in the springtime. So one way you can tell is if you grab it, it bends. See that bright green? So it's alive. So what happened, just for whatever reason, missed a watering, whatnot, and then the leaves that fell off of it. But like same thing, it's gonna root in over the fall, flush back out in the spring, and be just fine.
So if people have planted something recently and it defoliated, is that how they check trees and shrubs?
Yeah, it's called the scratch test. It's a secret industry term. So you just start out on the tips and just scratch it with your thumbnail. If it's a nice bright green, that means it's alive, it's fine. If it's brown, then that part is dead and you can keep moving down. But it's not uncommon for trees in the fall when they get planted, especially with the temperatures changing, that sometimes they may drop their leaves and things like that. So it's not super uncommon.
So these newer plantings might drop their leaves sooner than established plantings.
Probably just because of the transplanting shock and things like that, because you're taking a tree that's in a container above the ground and putting it in the ground, where your other trees that are in the ground, that ground has such great insulating factor for plants. So even though it's the exact same variety of plant, an established plant in the ground or a plant grown in a container react differently. So our container trees, when we bring them in the spring, they flower before trees that are planted around town. And then in the fall, they turn fall color and drop their leaves before the trees that are planted. So it is a little bit different timing cycle on that.
From your experience, is there anything that people should be on the lookout for if, like, they plant something now and it loses its leaves? Is there a way to tell with fall coming on if it just needed more water, or if it's just a natural defoliation? Is there any signs that they should be aware of, or just kind of check the soil?
Just check the soil. Typically, if it's a lack of water, typically the leaves kind of curl up, get crispy on the edges. If it's overwatering, they're typically a little bit droopy.
Okay.
This time of year, I would err more on it's probably overwatered for the most part.
Check the soil,
Yeah.
bend the branch,
Yeah.
scratch the bark.
Yeah. So, but I think it's going to be just fine. And one of those things, it's like we moved a peony that was planted here to plant this tree, and it was planted just this year, and it's amazing how many roots had already spread out for that. And so now we dug it up and moved it, so it's setting it back again. So a tree with you have roots in the ground, or any plant, if it's alive, it's best to leave that, because you have all that root mass in the ground, and a lot of it you can't see. When you dig it up, you're like, oh, I don't see that many roots. A lot of them you can't see. So if you dig that up and pull that out, you're losing all that time the roots have been establishing. So now in a few weeks, all the leaves are going to be off the trees anyway, and then they'll come back in the spring nice and fresh.